My family pretended we were poor. But the truth broke everything. I thought we were just another struggling family scraping by. But the moment my brother moved out, everything started unraveling: hidden bank accounts, a fake inheritance story, and a truth buried so deep it shattered everything I believed about my parents. What I uncovered changed my life and nearly tore us apart. A story of poverty, betrayal, long-lost relatives, and the healing power of truth. Stick around. This isn't just about money. It's about secrets, second chances, and what it really means to be a family. Growing up, I thought we were just another struggling family trying to make it. My mom worked 2 jobs, my dad disappeared before I could remember his face, and my older brother, Jason, was the man of the house before he turned 14. That's just how it was. We didn't complain. We didn't ask questions. We just survived. Our home was a creaky old rental on the edge of town, the kind with peeling wallpaper and a furnace that rattled like it was choking on its last breath. We used to joke that our house was so cold in the winter, you could see your breath even under a blanket. Mom would laugh with us, but there was always this tightness in her eyes, like something was pulling at her from the inside. School was tough. Not academically. I actually did okay, but socially. Showing up in hand-me-down shoes 2 sizes too big didn't exactly make you prom king material. Jason got into fights defending me, and I'll never forget the day he got suspended for decking a kid who called me trailer trash. We didn't live in a trailer, but it might as well have been. The insult stuck anyway. Despite it all, we stuck together. We were poor, but we had each other. That's what Mom always said. But everything changed the year I turned 17. It started when Jason turned 20 and decided to move out. He'd saved up money from working at the local hardware store and found a tiny apartment downtown. I was sad to see him go, but I got it. He needed his own space. What I didn't get was how nervous Mom got when he moved out. She started locking her bedroom door at night. She'd get up at 2 a.m. to make calls, whispering into the phone like a teenager sneaking around behind her parents' back. One night, I caught her crying in the kitchen, staring at a stack of envelopes. I asked her what was wrong, and she brushed it off with some vague excuse about bills piling up. I didn't believe her, but I didn't press either. That's just how we operated in our house. Silence was our family language. Until one day, Jason showed up at my school out of nowhere. He pulled me out of class like it was an emergency and drove us to a nearby diner. I kept asking what was going on, and he kept saying, "You need to see something." He pulled out a folder, thick with documents, bank statements, legal papers, a copy of a will. "What is this?" I asked, flipping through the pages. He looked me dead in the eyes. "We're not poor, Eli. We never were." I laughed, thinking he was joking. "You serious? You've seen our house? We eat ramen 5 nights a week." Jason shook his head. "It was all a lie, man. Mom's been sitting on a trust fund from Grandpa for years. Dad didn't walk out. He got bought out. She paid him to leave." I couldn't speak. My throat felt tight. I opened the folder again, my eyes scanning numbers I didn't understand, hundreds of thousands of dollars, untouched. "But why?" I finally whispered. Jason exhaled hard and leaned back. "I don't know. I found it all after I moved out. In a safe in her closet. I only figured out the code because it was Grandma's birthday. That night, I went home and watched Mom like a hawk. Every movement, every word. I noticed the subtle stuff I'd never questioned before. How she always paid for things in cash. How she never let us help with mail. How she refused to let anyone into her room. The next day, I did something I'd never done before. I confronted her. I waited until she came home from work, set her down at the kitchen table, and laid the folder in front of her. She froze. "I know, Mom," I said quietly. "I know everything." Her hands trembled. She didn't deny it. Didn't even try. "I did it for you," she whispered. "For me." I nearly shouted. "We lived like we had nothing. You let Jason break his back working full-time at 16 while you had a fortune hidden in a closet." She looked away. "Money ruins people. It ruined your father. I didn't want it to ruin you too." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. All those nights we went to bed hungry. All those winters we huddled together for warmth. That wasn't just life being hard, that was a choice. Her choice. From that day on, everything between us changed. I stopped trusting her. Jason cut contact completely. The only thing we agreed on was that we needed answers, and fast. Because if Mom was hiding this, what else had she been lying about? We were about to find out. Jason was furious. I mean, I was angry too, but he was on fire. He called it emotional theft, said we'd been robbed of a real childhood, and honestly, he wasn't wrong. Every time I thought about the birthdays with dollar store cupcakes or Christmas mornings where we unwrapped used toys from Goodwill, my stomach churned. Not because we were poor, but because we didn't have to be. The next few weeks were strange. Mom barely spoke to us. She walked around like a ghost, eyes hollow, barely making dinner, never meeting our eyes. I guess she figured we'd never forgive her. And at that moment, I didn't think we could. But Jason wasn't satisfied with just confronting her. He needed to know why. Why someone would let their kids suffer just to protect them from wealth. So he started digging deeper. He went to the courthouse, pulled up every public record he could find on our family. He talked to old neighbors, called Grandma's old attorney, even reached out to Dad, who, by the way, was alive and well in a small coastal town 3 states away, running a surf shop. When Jason told me that part, I just stared at him. "He runs a surf shop?" "Yeah. Looks happy, too," he said bitterly. Didn't even blink when I told him who I was. Turns out, Dad had been paid off in one lump sum when I was just 2 years old. Mom had given him $150,000 to walk away and never contact us again. There was even a document, signed and notarized, where he agreed to surrender all parental rights. No custody, no birthdays, no child support. Just gone. Jason called him a coward. I called him something worse. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part came a week later when Jason showed up at my school again, this time looking pale and shaken. "Come on," he said. "You need to see this." We went back to his place, and he pulled out a manila envelope. Inside were photos. Old ones, grainy, faded, but I recognized the faces. Mom, Grandma, and a man I'd never seen before. "Who is that?" I asked. "That," Jason said slowly, "is our real grandfather." I frowned. "What are you talking about? Grandpa Joe died before I was born." Jason shook his head. "No, that's what Mom told us. But this guy, his name's Charles Whitaker, he's very much alive. He's living in a retirement community just 45 minutes from here." I couldn't wrap my head around it. "Wait, are you saying Mom lied about him too?" "She's lied about everything." So that weekend, we drove out to the retirement home. We didn't call ahead. We didn't want to give anyone the chance to hide or spin another story. We just showed up, armed with a single photo from the envelope. We found him sitting by a window, feeding birds from a little plastic bag. "Mr. Whitaker?" Jason asked. The old man turned. His eyes widened when he saw the photo in Jason's hand. And then, something unexpected. He smiled. "I've been waiting a long time for this," he said softly. Turns out, Charles Whitaker was a millionaire back in the day. He owned several auto repair shops, made a fortune in the 80s, and retired comfortably. He was also Mom's biological father, but they hadn't spoken in over 25 years. He told us Mom cut ties with him after a massive falling out. Something about a second marriage, a new will, and a betrayal she never forgave. He said he'd written letters, called, even hired a private investigator once, but she'd blocked every attempt. "I wanted to meet you boys," he said, voice trembling. "I sent Christmas gifts every year. Did she never give them to you?" Jason and I looked at each other. We hadn't received a single thing from him. "She told us you were dead," I muttered. That broke him. He didn't cry, but his face just crumpled. The man looked like he'd aged a decade in a second. We spent the whole afternoon with him. He showed us photos of Mom as a teenager, told us stories about how she used to help fix cars and was the smartest kid in our school. It didn't fit the woman we knew, the quiet, guarded, broken woman who lived in our house. "Before we left," he said, "if you ever need help, real help, you come to me. I'm not dead yet." I didn't know what to say. Jason nodded, shook his hand, and we left. Back home, the silence was suffocating. Mom was in her room, door locked as usual. I knocked. No answer. "Mom," I said, "we know about Charles. We met him." Still no response. "You lied about him, too." A long pause. Then, softly, "Go away, Eli." But I didn't. I sat on the floor outside her door for hours that night, just thinking. About all the things she kept from us. About all the hurt we went through that could have been avoided. I couldn't sleep. Neither could Jason. The next morning, I found him already in the kitchen, scrolling through his laptop. He looked up at me and said, "I'm getting out of here." "What? Where?" "I talked to Charles last night. He's offering to pay for school. Said he'd cover everything if I wanted to go back." I blinked. "You're leaving?" He nodded. "I can't live in that house anymore. I need to start over." And just like that, I realized I was about to lose the only person who had ever really been there for me. Jason left a week later. No big goodbye. No emotional scene. Just a backpack, his laptop, and a ride from Charles waiting at the curb. I stood on the porch and watched him go, pretending I didn't care. But the second he was out of sight, the silence in that house got louder than it had ever been. Mom barely said a word for days. She stopped cooking, stopped going to work, just stayed in her room with the door locked. I think she knew I was next. I didn't have a trust fund offer or a place to escape to like Jason, but I had something else now, truth. And the weight of it made it hard to look at her without feeling sick. I started eating meals at school or over at friends' houses just to stay out of the house. I spent hours at the library researching our family history, trying to figure out where the line between truth and lie had first been drawn. Every story she ever told us, about how hard her life was, how nobody ever helped her, how men always walked out on her, sounded different now, like a play script she wrote and forced us to act out. But then something unexpected happened. I got a letter. Not an email. Not a text. A real, handwritten letter, tucked into my locker at school. The handwriting was unfamiliar, shaky but neat. "Eli, I know everything must feel confusing right now. I never meant for it to be this way. If you're willing to hear me out, I'd like to tell you the whole truth. No more secrets. Come to the address on the back after school. I'll be there. Mom." I stared at the letter for a long time, debating whether it was a trap or a genuine cry for connection. Eventually, curiosity won. I went. The address was a small coffee shop on the edge of town I'd never noticed before. She was already there, sitting in the back corner with a cup of tea and a look on her face like she hadn't slept in a month. When I sat down, she didn't smile. She just looked at me and said, "I owe you the truth." I didn't speak. I didn't need to. She started talking, and I just listened. She told me everything. When she was 17, she got pregnant with Jason. Charles, our grandfather, was furious. Not because she was young, but but because the father was from the wrong side of town. He tried to bribe her into giving the baby up. When she refused, he cut her off. She worked 3 jobs, couch surfed, and raised Jason alone until she met our dad. For a while, things were okay. Dad was kind, stable. But when Charles came back into the picture and offered a reconciliation, everything spiraled. He wanted to be part of our lives again, but with conditions. He didn't want Jason's father around. He wanted to control everything, our school, our living situation, even who Mom married. She snapped, paid Dad to leave, cut off Charles, and swore to raise us her way, without anyone pulling the strings. But the trust fund was always there, sitting in a bank account under her name, untouched, like a ghost haunting her every decision. I thought I was protecting you, she said quietly. From him. From becoming like him. From turning into people who cared more about money than about each other. I asked her why she never told us any of this. Why she didn't just trust us. Her eyes welled up, and for the first time in a long time, I saw the mom I remembered as a kid. Because I didn't trust myself, she whispered. I made mistakes, Eli. And I didn't want you to pay for them. I didn't know how to respond. The truth didn't make it all better. It didn't erase the nights we went without heat or food or the years Jason and I carried burdens we didn't deserve. But for the first time, I understood the fear behind her choices. I got up to leave, and she reached across the table, placing a small key in my hand. What's this? It's to the safe, she said. The one Jason found. Everything's in there. Bank info. Letters I wrote to you and him but never sent. If I don't make it right, maybe you can. I didn't ask what she meant by that. A week later, she checked herself into a rehab center. Turns out, Mom had been struggling with pills for years. It started after Jason was born painkillers from an old back injury. She kept it hidden, numbing herself just enough to function, until the guilt and secrets became too heavy. I visited her once. She looked better. Not good, but better. Clearer eyes. Softer voice. She told me she was proud of me for coming. I didn't say anything. Just sat there, holding the same hands that had once braided my hair and packed my school lunches. When I got home that night, I opened the safe. Inside were stacks of documents, cash envelopes, and dozens of old letters. One of them was addressed to me. Dear Eli, I never meant to make you feel small or forgotten. You are the kindest, strongest person I know. I've seen it in the way you care for your brother, your friends, even me when I didn't deserve it. If you're reading this, it means I've finally let go of the fear that's ruled my life. I hope one day you can forgive me, not for what I did, but for what I didn't do. Love always. Mom. I cried for a long time after that. Not because everything was better, but because for the first time, it felt like it could be. 3 weeks passed. Mom was still in rehab. I called her twice a week, sometimes just to say a few words and hang up. I wasn't ready to forgive her, not yet. But hearing her voice sound steady again, clear, not slurred or trembling, meant more to me than I was willing to admit. Jason called, too. Said school was tough but good. Charles had gotten him into his small community college and even paid for an off-campus apartment. It sounded like he was finally breathing for the first time in years. As for me, I was stuck in limbo. I stayed at the house alone most nights. The safe was now locked again, but I kept the key on a chain around my neck. Not for the money, for the truth. Then one morning, I got a call that turned everything upside down again. It was from a law firm. They said they represented Charles Whitaker and needed to speak with me immediately. I thought maybe something had happened to him. But when I got there, they handed me a thick envelope and said, Mr. Whitaker made some changes to his estate. You'll want to read this carefully. Inside was a letter from Charles, typed and signed. Eli. If you're reading this, it means I've made a decision you may not agree with, but I believe it's the right one. I'm leaving the majority of my estate to you, not Jason, not your mother. To you. Not out of favoritism, but because I believe you'll use it wisely, without bitterness. I trust you to do what's right. I froze. Attached to the letter was a copy of the updated will. Several properties, 2 bank accounts, and a vintage car collection were now listed under my name, set to transfer upon Charles's passing. Jason had been left a smaller amount, and Mom, nothing. My stomach twisted. I didn't want this. I didn't ask for any of it. And worse. I knew Jason wouldn't take it well. I waited a few days before telling him. We met at a park halfway between our towns. When I broke the news, he didn't yell. He didn't say a word at first. Just sat there, jaw clenched. Why you? He finally asked. I don't know, I said. He said he trusts me to use it wisely. Jason laughed, but there was no humor in it. You think I wouldn't? No, that's not what I meant. Yeah, well, it doesn't matter. It's his choice. Always has been. I tried to hand him the key to the safe. We can split everything. I don't care about the money. But he shook his head. You always see the best in people, Eli, even when you shouldn't. And just like that, he walked off. I watched him go, heart pounding, wondering if I just lost my brother for good. Back at home, I sat on my bed with the will in my hands, rereading it over and over. I didn't want to be the one holding all the power. I didn't want to be the one left with the burden of decisions. I just wanted a family that didn't break under secrets and silence. A few nights later, I had a dream, one of those strange, vivid ones that feel more like a memory than imagination. I was a kid again, sitting on the floor of the old living room, watching Mom braid Jason's hair while he played with the toy truck. Everyone was laughing. We were happy. When I woke up, I made a decision. I called Charles. He answered after the second ring. I wondered when you'd call, he said. I don't want the inheritance, I said. Or at least, not like this. If I take it, it tears us apart. He was quiet for a moment. Then he sighed. That's why I chose you. I asked him if he'd be willing to change the will again, split it evenly between me and Jason, and set up a separate fund for Mom. Not a reward. Just a chance to get back on her feet when she got out. You don't owe her that, he said gently. I know, I replied. But maybe that's the point. A week later, the new documents arrived. Everything was now divided into thirds, just like I'd asked. Jason didn't say anything when I told him. But 2 days later, he texted me. Thanks. I still don't get it. But, thanks. I saved that message like it was gold. Then, out of nowhere, came the twist I never saw coming. I was cleaning out the attic, just trying to keep busy, when I found a dusty old box wedged behind a pile of holiday decorations. Inside were old VHS tapes, photo albums, and a bunch of paperwork from when I was a baby. And one envelope that was marked, for Eli, only if the truth matters. My heart stopped. I opened it with shaky hands. Inside was a letter from my real father. Not the man Mom paid to leave. Not the surf shop ghost. This was someone else. Eli. You don't know me, but I've followed your life from a distance for years. I never wanted to be a ghost in your story, but I wasn't given a choice. Your mother told me you weren't mine. I believed her until a DNA test proved otherwise. But by then, you were already 5, and she'd shut every door between us. I didn't have the money to fight. I wish I had. I hope you're strong. I hope you're kind. I hope you forgive me someday. Your father. A.D. I stared at the letter for what felt like an hour. Who is A.D.? Why would Mom lie about that too? I grabbed my phone and started searching the initials, cross-checking dates, addresses, anything that might give me a clue. And what I found opened a whole new door. A.D. was Adam Daniels, a retired school teacher. And according to some online forums, a man who had once been arrested in a custody battle that made local news, the same year I was born. I wasn't ready to believe it. But something inside me knew. This wasn't over. There were still layers to uncover. Mom had buried the truth deeper than I ever imagined. And now, I had to decide. Was I willing to dig it all up? I kept staring at the name, Adam Daniels. It meant nothing to me. No face. No voice. No memory. But that letter hit me harder than anything Mom ever said. If what he wrote was true, then almost everything I thought I knew about my childhood was a lie. I waited a couple of days before doing anything. Just carried the letter around in my backpack like a live wire. Every time I opened it, I felt like I was peeling back skin that had never healed right. Eventually, I called the number listed on one of those old news articles. It went a voicemail. You've reached Adam Daniels. Leave a message. I didn't know what to say, so I hung up. Then I called again. Hi. I don't know if this is the right number, but my name is Eli. I paused. Eli Walker. I think you might be my father. Click. The voicemail cut off. No time to explain. No way to take it back. The next day, he called me. His voice was quiet, low, like he wasn't sure if I was real. Eli. He asked. Yeah, it's me. There was a long pause. Is this really happening? I think so. We decided to meet. No pressure. Just lunch. Neutral territory. He picked a quiet diner an hour from where I lived. I barely ate. Just stared at the man across from me, trying to find pieces of myself in his face. He had my nose. My eyes. Same awkward way of avoiding eye contact when things got emotional. I always hoped I'd meet you someday, he said. I just didn't think it would take 18 years. I wanted to hate him. I wanted to yell at him for not trying harder, for not fighting tooth and nail to be in my life. But then he told me about the court battle. About how Mom swore I wasn't his. About how the DNA test proved otherwise after she'd already legally shut him out. I didn't have the money to fight back, he said. She knew that. I believed him. Not just because of what he said, but because of how he said it. This wasn't some guy chasing a payout or attention. This was a man who had carried regret like a stone in his chest for nearly 2 decades. We talked for 2 hours. Maybe more. He showed me photos, ones he'd taken from a distance. School plays. Soccer games. Graduation. He'd been there, just never close enough for me to notice. I didn't want to scare you, he said. I just needed to know you were okay. When I got home that night, I couldn't hold it in anymore. I called Mom. She answered, her voice groggy. She sounded better, though. Stronger. Mom, I said, why didn't you tell me about Adam? Silence. You knew. He wrote me a letter. Said he did a DNA test. That he tried. More silence. I'm not mad, I added. I just want to know the truth. All of it. Finally, she spoke. Because I was afraid. He reminded me of a version of myself I was trying to erase. I didn't want you growing up caught between 2 people who couldn't even stand to be in the same room. But I had a right to know. I know, she whispered. And I'm sorry. I didn't say anything else. I just ended the call. The next few weeks were strange. I kept meeting with Adam, little by little, trying to build something that resembled a relationship. He wasn't perfect. He had his baggage. But he was present. And for the first time in my life, I understood what that actually meant. Jason, meanwhile, stayed distant. We texted now and then, but our conversations were short. Surface level. I think part of him still felt like I had taken something from him, even after I split the inheritance. One night, I got a message from him that surprised me. Is it true? About the other dad? I hesitated before replying. Yeah, his name's Adam. I've met him a few times. Jason didn't respond for hours. Then finally, wish he would have told me. I had a right to know too. And he did. He absolutely did. The next weekend, I drove down and met Jason at his place. We sat on the hood of his car, watching the sunset like we used to when we were younger. Mom told me about him when I was 12, Jason said quietly. My head snapped toward him. What? She said he wasn't really your dad, that you'd never meet him. But she never gave me a name or details. Just said it was better left in the past. Why didn't you tell me? He looked down. Because I didn't think it mattered. And honestly, I think I wanted to keep one secret of hers to myself. We sat in silence for a long time. Then he said, do you think we'll ever be normal? I laughed softly. I don't even know what that means anymore. Jason smiled. It was the first real smile I'd seen from him in months. Then, just when I thought things were finally settling, another curveball. Charles passed away. Heart attack. Peaceful. In his sleep. His lawyer called me the next morning to inform me and said he left one final letter. I drove out that day and picked it up. Eli. If you're reading this, then I'm gone. I hope you know I never stopped loving your mother, no matter how far apart we drifted. And I loved you and Jason in my own stubborn way. There is one last thing I need to ask of you. In the top drawer of my desk is a sealed envelope. It's for your mother. Deliver it. No matter what she says, make sure she opens it. And Eli, be better than we were. That's all I ever wanted for you. With love. Charles. I didn't wait. I picked up the envelope, drove straight to the rehab center, and asked to see Mom. She looked older than she had just a month before. Tired in a different way. But she hugged me. What's this? She asked, staring at the envelope. It's from him, I said. Charles. Her hands trembled as she held it. She didn't open it in front of me. Just held it to her chest and closed her eyes. I'm glad you came, she whispered. So was I. I didn't hear from Mom for a few days after I gave her the envelope. I kept thinking about what could have been inside, an apology, a confession, maybe just a goodbye. But knowing Charles, it probably wasn't that simple. On the fourth day, she called. Eli, she said, her voice shaky. Can you come? I was already grabbing my keys before she finished the sentence. When I arrived at the rehab center, she was waiting in the visitor's lounge, sitting in one of those plastic chairs that never quite feel comfortable. Her hair was pulled back, face clean, no makeup, just raw and tired and real. She handed me the envelope. Read it, she said. You deserve to know. I opened it slowly, not sure I was ready. Inside was a single page, written in Charles's sharp, familiar handwriting. Maggie. I know I'll never get the chance to say this face to face, so I'll say it here. I failed you. When you told me about the baby, I didn't react like a father should. I thought I was protecting you by pushing you to choose differently, but I was protecting my pride, not you. You were stronger than me, braver than me, and I punished you for that. I see it now. But there's something I never told you. The money I gave you, the trust fund? It wasn't from me. It was from your mother. She left it in her will, just for you, and made me promise to give it to you without interference. I lied. I told you it was from me, and I made it conditional. I'm sorry. You deserved better. So did the boys. Tell Eli the truth. Tell him everything. Charles. I looked up at her. She was crying. Not silent tears, but full-on shaking sobs. All these years, she said, I thought he was holding it over me to punish me for keeping Jason. But it was my mother's money, and he used it like a weapon anyway. I didn't know what to say. You have to understand, she continued, her voice cracking. I thought if I accepted it, I was selling my soul. I thought I'd have to give you both up someday. That's why I hid it. That's why I buried everything. I sat down across from her, my heart pounding. So you lived in poverty, out of fear. Yes, she whispered. And guilt. And stubbornness. And everything else that keeps people from asking for help when they need it most. I nodded slowly. Thank you. For telling me. She looked at me like she didn't expect forgiveness, like she didn't even know how to ask for it. But I offered it anyway. Not with words. Just by staying. That fall, I moved out of the house. Not in anger, not to run away, but because it was time. I used a portion of the trust to enroll in a nearby college. I got a small apartment, modest but clean. A space of my own. Jason came by on move-in day. We didn't talk much, just carried boxes and exchanged tired smiles. But as he was about to leave, he clapped me on the back and said, You did good, little bro. It meant more than he knew. Adam, my biological dad, showed up later with some old furniture he said wasn't doing anything but collecting dust. We set it up together, awkwardly but with effort. Like two people who had missed every chapter but were still trying to write an ending worth reading. Mom came by last. She brought me a plant. A tiny, struggling thing in a chipped ceramic pot. It needs sunlight, she said. And water. And time. I looked at her, and she looked at me. I guess we both do, I said. She smiled through her tears. Yeah, we do. Months passed. Life didn't suddenly become perfect. There were still awkward dinners, unanswered texts, and days I questioned everything. But things were real now. And honest. I stayed in touch with Adam. We went fishing once, which mostly meant sitting in silence and sharing sandwiches, but it felt like something. Jason found a job he actually liked and started dating someone. He seemed lighter these days, like the weight had shifted off his shoulders. And Mom? She finished rehab, got a new job at a community center, helping single moms get back on their feet. She even started attending therapy, voluntarily. One night, we all ended up in the same place, my apartment. Jason brought pizza, Mom brought a board game, and Adam awkwardly brought a fruit tray no one asked for. We laughed. We argued over rules. We made fun of each other. It wasn't polished or perfect, but for the first time, it felt like a family. A real one. Not built on lies or secrets, but on truth. Messy, painful, honest, forgiven. 3 years later, if you told 17-year-old me that my family would someday sit around a Thanksgiving table without screaming or slamming doors, I would have laughed in your face. But here we were, me, Jason, Mom, and even Adam, passing plates of turkey and mashed potatoes like a normal family. Mom had made her famous cranberry stuffing, which still tasted weird, but Jason swore it had charm. Adam brought pie from a local bakery, and I roasted the turkey, dry, but edible. Progress. The apartment was long gone. I graduated college that spring, and with Charles's help, and later his inheritance, I bought a small house not far from where we grew up. Nothing fancy, 2 bedrooms, a cozy porch, but it was mine. Jason came over a lot. He ended up starting his own mechanic shop. Funny how the kid who once swore he'd never turn a wrench again now loved fixing things. He even named the shop Whitaker & Sons, his way of honoring Charles, in spite of everything. Adam had slowly but surely become part of our lives. He never tried to replace anyone, just showed up when it mattered. Birthdays, big milestones, bad days. That was enough. And Mom? She was healing, working full-time at the community center, still in therapy, still figuring out who she was beyond the shame and the secrets. But I saw her laugh now, genuinely, and that mattered more than anything. After dinner, we sat around the living room, flipping through old photo albums I'd inherited from Charles. One picture stopped us cold. It was of Mom and Charles, young, smiling, standing in front of an old pickup truck. But what caught our eye wasn't them. It was the kid sitting in the truck bed. Jason leaned forward. Wait, who's that? Mom squinted. That's, oh my God. What? I asked. She looked at us with wide eyes. That's your cousin. My sister's son. Jason blinked. You have a sister? Mom went quiet. She left when I was 21. Ran off with a guy from New Orleans. We lost touch. She never met you boys. I felt my pulse quicken. Do you know where she is now? No, Mom whispered. But maybe it's time I find out. That moment stuck with me. A new chapter. Another buried truth. Another chance. A year later, I got a call from Mom while I was walking home from work. I found her, she said. It took me a second to realize what she meant. Your sister. Her name's Rachel. She lives in North Carolina now. And Eli. She wants to meet us. I didn't know what to say. I'd gotten used to the endings, the finality of closure, the weight of a full circle. But this wasn't an ending. It was a new beginning. 2 weeks later, we made the trip. Jason drove. Mom rode shotgun. I sat in the back, flipping through the old photo of the kid in the truck bed. A boy who looked weirdly like Jason at that age. Rachel greeted us at the door with tears in her eyes. She was older than Mom by a few years but had the same eyes, the same cautious smile. I've waited a long time for this, she said, pulling Mom into a hug that seemed to melt decades of distance. Inside, we met her son, Daniel. The kid from the photo. Now grown, married, with kids of his own. We talked for hours. Shared stories. Compared timelines. Laughed at how much Jason and Daniel looked alike. Then came the twist. Rachel pulled out an old notebook. Inside were letters. Dozens of them. Addressed to Mom. Never sent. She handed them over without a word, and I watched as Mom's hand shook while she held them. All those years, thinking she was alone. But she never really was. She just didn't know who was still out there, waiting. Today, I'm writing this now, not to get sympathy or attention, but to remind anyone listening that the truth matters. Even when it's ugly. Even when it hurts. Because lies don't protect us, they trap us. And the longer you stay in the dark, the harder it is to recognize the light when it finally shows up. My family isn't perfect. We never will be. But we're real. We talk. We fight fair. We say the hard things. And sometimes, we even laugh. We're no longer the broken people hiding behind poverty and pride. We're just us. And honestly, that's more than enough.